Imagine, imagine you're working for the absolute worst boss on the planet. I mean, the pay is terrible, the hours are even worse, and the person running the company has the character of like a cartoon villain.
Oh, yeah, we've all been there. Or at least we know someone who has. It's a nightmare.
Right, exactly. So every instinct you have, and frankly, pretty much every piece of modern career advice out there tells you to either, quiet quit, do the bare minimum to collect your paycheck, or just storm out the door.
Yeah, protect your peace, right? That's the common advice.
Exactly. But what if doing a half-hearted job, just to spite your boss, is actually the fastest way to completely destroy your own future? Like, what if the menial, soul-crushing tasks you are sleepwalking through right now are literally the only things dictating the trajectory of your life?
It is a massive, jarring shift in perspective, especially today. Because, I mean, we live in an era that is just totally obsessed with the pivot.
Oh, 100%.
We want the dramatic career change, the sudden epiphany, the massive life hack. We are conditioned to basically ignore the mundane because we think the real magic happens on some grand stage somewhere else.
And that is exactly why today's deep dive is so fascinating. We are looking at an essay from 2021 titled, "Completing Every Little Thing Perfectly Makes You Extraordinary."
Quite a title.
Right. It was written by an author named Sofeng who was in his 60s at the time. And he framed this piece as the ultimate distillation of a half-century of life insights. And his core argument is just incredibly bold.
It really is.
He claims that mastering the smallest, most easily ignored daily tasks isn't just a good habit. It is the absolute guaranteed shortcut to becoming an extraordinary individual.
Which forces us to redefine what those words even mean.
Yeah.
We usually treat mundane and extraordinary as total opposites,
Yeah, completely.
The mundane is the laundry, the commute, that really annoying email thread you're on. And the extraordinary is the promotion, the award, the big breakthrough. But Stuffing is laying out a roadmap, arguing that the mundane is actually the direct, unavoidable gateway to the extraordinary.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before he gives us the philosophical reasons why this works, he paints a picture of what this actually looks like in practice.
Right, he grounds it in reality first.
Yeah, he walks through everyday scenarios, escalating from how we treat our colleagues to how we treat family, and finally how we handle our careers. And honestly, the level of perfection he demands is intense.
He is absolutely not talking about perfectionism in the sense of, like, keeping a color-coded calendar or a tidy desk.
No, not at all.
He is outlining a radical behavioral and, well, spiritual perfectionism. It starts with a baseline that completely challenges how we view basic human interaction.
All right, let's start with that baseline. When you are just out in the world, collaborating with someone, serving a customer, or interacting with a superior or an elder, Wolfgang says your primary goal must be to make an earnest effort to bring them joy.
Yes.
You have to actively show them respect and a willingness to serve.
And pay attention to the specific phrasing he uses in the text here. He states that when you are collaborating, you should be willing to give more and enjoy less.
Give more and enjoy less. I mean, that immediately rubs against the grain of how we are taught to operate.
It really does.
We live in a highly transactional culture. We expect a 50-50 split. If I do this for you, what do I get in return?
That transactional mindset is exactly what he is trying to dismantle. He wants to strip away the expectation that your interactions need to be perfectly equal in their immediate payoff.
Right.
The goal is simply to make the experience comfortable and valuable for the other person, regardless of the return on investment.
But it's one thing to say we should bring joy to a stranger or a coworker we collaborate with occasionally. That's just being polite, or maybe a bit overly generous.
Sure.
But the author pushes this further into much harder territory. He escalates this philosophy straight into the living room, to our blood relatives and our in-laws.
Yeah, this is where the psychological friction really begins for a modern reader.
Friction is putting it lightly. With parents, siblings, spouses, and their extended families, Zhu Feng's instruction is to completely put aside your personal interests.
Completely.
You're supposed to give your utmost effort to make everyone feel secure and comfortable. You must do it without expecting a single reward. He says you shouldn't show even the slightest hint of complaint.
Think about how radical that is in the context of today's cultural conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk constantly about establishing boundaries, right?
Oh, boundaries are everything now.
Exactly. We talk about protecting our peace, about ensuring equal emotional labor in our households. If a relationship feels one-sided, the advice is almost always to pull back.
Exactly. If your in-laws are being demanding and ungrateful, modern psychology says to set a boundary. But Zhu Feng is advocating for a radical, unconditional output of effort.
Because he views these relationships not as negotiations, but as testing grounds.
Hmm.
Your only focus should be expressing your absolute best qualities.
Huh.
The reaction of your family, whether they thank you, ignore you, or even criticize you, is almost irrelevant to the equation. Your job is to output perfection.
Okay, but is that actually realistic? Shifting to this unconditional output sounds incredibly noble on paper, but human beings are biologically wired to seek validation. We need that reciprocal energy to keep going.
We do, yeah.
And this brings me to the third scenario he outlines, which is where I completely hit a wall when I was reading the source material. Career and work. Let's go back to that terrible boss scenario we started with.
The ultimate stress test for his philosophy.
Truly, because Xu Feng says it doesn't matter if you're a civil servant or grinding away for a private company. It doesn't matter if the pay is completely unfair. And crucially, it doesn't matter if your boss has a fundamentally terrible character. You must perform your job to the absolute highest possible level. You just cannot do a half-hearted job.
It's uncompromising.
Now, he does offer one escape hatch. He says if the situation is truly unbearable and not worth it, you can quit. But if you choose to stay for even one more day, you must deliver perfection.
It is an entirely uncompromising stance. There is zero middle ground allowed for just phoning it in to collect a paycheck while you look for another job.
But think about the toll that takes. Zero complaints, expecting zero rewards, putting aside all personal interests, and working perfectly for an awful boss.
It's a lot to ask.
It reminds me of the culture inside a Michelin-star restaurant kitchen. If you treat your life like that kitchen, it means that scrubbing the baseboards at midnight when everyone has gone home requires the exact same level of artistry, dedication, and focus as plating the main course for a food critic.
That's a great comparison.
You are treating the unseen, unglamorous dirt with the same reverence as the spotlight moment. But doing that 24/7, maintaining that level of intensity in a vacuum where literally no one appreciates it, that sounds like a fast track to total burnout.
But that Michelin star analogy actually highlights the core mechanism at play here. Why does a master chef scrub the baseboard with such intensity when the customer in the dining room will never ever see it?
Because they have pride in their kitchen.
Yes, but take it a step deeper. It's not for the customer's applause. What Xu Efeng is systematically doing through these escalating scenarios, the colleagues, the in-laws, the terrible boss, is stripping away every ounce of extrinsic motivation.
Wait, so he is deliberately taking away the promise of a reward.
Exactly.
If you remove the potential for a raise or a thank you from your spouse or public recognition, the only thing left driving you is your own internal standard.
Precisely. We are completely conditioned to run on external fuel. I mean, a good salary makes us work hard. A toxic boss makes us slack off.
A grateful partner makes us loving. An annoying in-law makes us distant.
Right. Shuemi is arguing that relying on those external factors makes you incredibly fragile. Your character is just blowing in the wind of other people's behavior.
Wow, yeah.
By demanding that you give more, expect zero reward, and never complain, he is forcing a complete shift to intrinsic motivation. You scrub the baseboards perfectly. Not because the boss is watching, but because you are simply a person who scrubs baseboards perfectly. The external environment basically loses its power over your internal quality.
Okay, I see the mechanics of that. It's about building an inner fortress. If my effort is entirely self-generated, a terrible boss can't touch my work ethic.
Exactly.
But still, I struggle with the isolation of this. Doing all this in the dark with zero validation requires a monk-like level of willpower. And this is exactly where the essay takes a massive turn. It's almost like Xu Feng anticipates the reader throwing their hands up and saying, why bother?
Yeah, he does. He pivots from this very grounded practical advice into something highly metaphysical.
Yes. He moves abruptly from the what and the where into a much grander, unseen why. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Go for it.
Xu Feng reveals a secret. He claims to have discovered this after spending years as a spiritual guide in a philosophical community called Lifechanyuan. And through that experience, he realized that you're actually never in a vacuum. There are always eyes watching you. Always.
Always.
Even when you are completely alone, locked in your office, scrubbing those metaphorical baseboards.
And he is very specific about the nature of these watchers. He states that the entities observing you are not your peers. They are not your coworkers gossiping about you.
Right.
They are always more advanced, highly outstanding individuals on a higher level of existence.
So we aren't just talking about a vague sense of karma. We're talking about an unseen audience of advanced observers.
Yeah.
And they aren't just passively eating popcorn and watching your life unfold like a reality show.
Now they have an active role.
Exactly. Shuofeng says, these observers are the ones who actually determine the literal trajectory of your life. They decide whether your future path will be smooth and wide or frustratingly narrow.
Which completely reframes the terrible boss scenario we were wrestling with earlier.
Exactly. You aren't performing for the terrible boss. The terrible boss is essentially just a prop in a simulation, a stress test.
Stop prop, yeah.
You are performing for this unseen audience of advanced observers who hold the keys to your destiny. If you fail to do the small things well, if you cut corners because you think the boss doesn't deserve your best, these advanced observers see your lack of internal integrity and they narrow your path. They restrict your future opportunities.
But if you excel...
Right, but if you excel in every little thing, regardless of the environment, they widen your path.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's like the concept of the panopticon. You know that architectural design for a prison where the guard tower is in the center and the cells are all around it?
Right, where the inmates can't see into the tower, so they never know exactly when they are being watched.
Exactly. Because they might be watched at any given second, they have to act as if they are being watched all the time. The structure itself enforces perfect behavior.
Oh, I see where you're...
Shuofeng is basically applying that architecture to the universe. He is building a spiritual panopticon.
A spiritual panopticon. Man, I love that framing because it completely changes the math of the daily grind. The dark, unseen moments are suddenly the most high-stakes moments of your life.
It introduces ultimate, inescapable accountability. Think about human nature. It is incredibly easy to maintain a facade of perfection when you are in public.
Oh, for sure.
You can turn on the charm for a big client presentation or a first date, but who are you when the Zoom camera turns off? Who are you when no one you know is looking?
That's the real test.
By introducing these advanced, invisible observers who actively control your fate, Shuofeng eliminates the dark. There is no offstage anymore.
This mindset forces you to ensure that your inner world perfectly matches your outward public actions. Total congruence. If the advanced observers see you pocketing office supplies or leaving a mess for someone else to clean up because, nobody is looking, they restrict your life.
Right.
It's a fascinating psychological tool or spiritual reality, depending on how you view it, to sustain that Michelin star level of effort without burning out. You are never actually unappreciated. The ultimate judges are always taking notes.
And just when you think the stakes couldn't get any higher, he stretches this concept of observation out beyond the present moment and literally into eternity.
Right. If feeling watched 24/7 wasn't intense enough, Shuofeng introduces a concept he calls the information retention space. According to the essay, this is a realm where every single word you speak and every single action you take is permanently recorded.
And he emphasizes the permanence of the space in absolute cosmic terms.
He really does. He specifically notes that even if tens of thousands of years pass, or even if the Earth itself completely disappears and is destroyed, everything recorded in this information retention space will remain intact.
It's staggering to think about.
It will not disappear. Once you utter a word or take an action, it is a locked record. It is completely impossible to change it.
It functions as the ultimate, indestructible historical ledger of your existence. But what's fascinating here is the contrast he creates.
How so?
He takes this vast, internal, metaphysical concept that outlasts the planet Earth, and he applies it directly to the most mundane, disposable parts of our modern lives.
Yes. You hear information retention space outlasting the destruction of the Earth, and you think he's going to talk about profound philosophical declarations or world peace treaties. But Shuofeng immediately points the finger at the internet.
Yeah, he goes right for our phones.
He warns us specifically about the modern online world and platforms like WeChat.
He recognizes that the digital realm gives us an unprecedented, frictionless space to broadcast ourselves. But with that ease comes immense danger. He argues that every single word we type in a WeChat group or any online forum is literally paving the road of our future.
He says speaking perfectly and doing every little thing perfectly paves the way to heaven, while speaking and acting in an ugly way paves the way to hell. And he means this literally, through the mechanism of that eternal ledger.
It's a stark warning.
We usually think of our digital footprint as a corporate marketing concept, like You search for vintage guitars once and suddenly the algorithms are feeding you targeted ads for the rest of the week.
Right, we think of it as data harvesting.
But this author views a simple, everyday WeChat message as an indestructible building block of your spiritual trajectory. So what does this all mean for someone who's just mindlessly firing off texts all day?
Well, it's terrifying when you consider how we actually use technology.
Exactly. Think about the Slack channels, the family group chats, the comment sections. We treat text messages as completely ephemeral. We fire them off while waiting in line for coffee, often driven by momentary irritation or distraction.
A fleeting mood.
The author is basically saying that firing off a passive-aggressive Slack message with an eye roll emoji isn't just a fleeting moment of frustration. It is permanently training the universe's algorithm against you.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. Think of the information retention space not just as a static hard drive storing data, but as a dynamic algorithm.
Yeah.
Shuofeng reiterates a core principle here. What information you input into the world strictly determines what results the world gives back to you.
Input determines output.
Oh, yes. Because every word we speak, according to him, fully reflects our inner world and our life qualities at that moment. It's not just about the vocabulary you use, it's about the soul state that generated those words.
Right.
If you are casually cruel in a group chat, or if you are thoughtless, hasty, and complain constantly, that negative energy is the raw material you are feeding into the information retention space.
So that hasty, annoyed text isn't just a text, it's a permanent artifact.
Exactly. And that space, in conjunction with those advanced observers we talked about, will process that raw material and feed that exact same energy back into the trajectory of your life.
Wow.
If you input frustration and half-heartedness, the universe outputs a narrow, frustrating path. If your digital footprint is essentially a spiritual code, every cruel text is literally programming a harder life for yourself.
He makes a point toward the end of the essay that really brings this all down to earth. He says that sometimes a single word we speak or a small thing we do can literally change the trajectory of someone else's life. And we all know this is true.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about a time when a teacher's offhand compliment completely changed your confidence for a whole year. Or, conversely, when a stranger's sarcastic remark completely derailed your mood and ruined your week. We wield that kind of power constantly, often without even thinking about it.
We throw those words around casually, not realizing their weight.
But Shuofeng is reminding us that all those words and tiny actions don't just impact others. They collectively shape the trajectory of our own lives. The universe's algorithm is always listening and always adjusting your path based on what you output.
It's always calibrating.
That is the fundamental mechanism behind his bold claim at the very beginning. That is what he means when he concludes that extraordinary lives are simply the end result of people who complete every little thing perfectly.
It completely removes the mystery from becoming extraordinary. It isn't magic. It isn't luck. And it certainly isn't a massive overnight pivot. It is the cumulative, inevitable weight of thousands upon thousands of perfectly executed, tiny, everyday choices recorded forever.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Shuofeng's philosophy, let's distill what this actually means for your day-to-day life.
Let's do it.
If you are feeling overwhelmed by the societal pressure to make massive leaps, to start a company, change careers, or find some dramatic life hack, or if you're feeling totally bogged down by the meaningless, boring routine of your daily grind, this half-century of insight offers a massive reframe.
The profound takeaway is that the mundane is the extraordinary in waiting. Whether you are dealing with a difficult boss, serving your demanding in-laws without the expectation of a thank you, or just collaborating on a tedious project with a colleague, those moments aren't distractions from your real life's work.
They really aren't.
They aren't the things keeping you from being extraordinary. They are the work. They are the exact specific arenas where your character is tested and forged.
And the most comforting, or perhaps terrifying part, is that you are never doing it alone and it is never unrecorded.
Right.
By adopting the mindset that advanced observers are constantly watching you, and that every single action is permanently etched into a cosmic information retention space, you find the ultimate antidote to the feeling that your daily routine doesn't matter.
It marries eternally.
It outlasts the earth itself. The effort you put into scrubbing those baseboards in the dark is literally building the width of your future path.
It demands a remarkably high level of vigilance. You have to stay awake to your own life. But in exchange, it imbues every single moment of your day, no matter how small or boring, with profound meaning and dignity. You don't need a grand stage to be extraordinary. You just need to perfect the task immediately in front of you.
Which leaves us with a final thought to carry into the rest of your day. We've explored how every tiny action is a permanent artifact in that indestructible information retention space. We've seen how these unseen observers use those artifacts to dictate the width of your path.
So if that is true, perhaps the most consequential decision you will make today isn't a major career move. It isn't a financial investment or a brilliant creative pivot. What if the most important choice of your entire week is simply the exact tone of voice you use when you say hello to the next stranger you meet? How differently would you live today, right now, if you treated your very next mundane text message as a permanent, eternal artifact of your existence?